Well, welcome back to the second session of this morning. And here we're going to have a presentation from Dr. Pinder Sithole. Dr. Pinder Sithole is one of the winners of the essay competition for this evaluation week. And Dr. Pinder Sithole is going to talk about result-based M&E, a paradigm shift towards Africa's transformation. Dr. Pinder has been in development for over 20 years in various aspects of development, in particular research, evaluation, result-based planning, as well as capacity building. He's got experience not only in Africa, but also in Asia. And within Africa, one of his areas of regions of concentration is Southern Africa, in particular SADC and Eastern Africa. Dr. Pinder is a part-time lecturer also at the African University in Zimbabwe and in the Institute of Peace, Leadership and Governance, where he teaches development theory, practice, and citizens' engagement, peace and conflict in development, policy, public policy, governance in Africa, and results-based leadership. He holds a doctorate degree and also an associate degree in accounting, a bachelor's degree in finance, and a master's degree in leadership and management. So, and now please help me to welcome Dr. Pinder Sithole to come and give his presentation. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be here, and I would like to start by saying there is an African wisdom which says that it takes the whole village to raise a child. The African Development Bank has organized the village, all of us, to be here this week to learn and share from each other. I've learned immensely since Monday from the various presentations. And I hope there's something that you also get from my presentation in terms of the continuing learning and sharing. As has been presented, I'm going to look at the results-based monitoring and evaluation and to see how that is a necessity today to transform Africa's development. And I'll go through what it is, its background, what are some of the pitfalls that are inherent or that we have experienced in our projects and programs for development. I also will share with you, lastly, a case study from Nigeria to illustrate why it is necessary for all of us to have RBM, results-based monitoring and evaluation, as a way of life in everything that we do. I'm locating this presentation in the ADB high fives, particularly to do with improved quality of life of Africans, as well as Light Africa. The key question that that motivated me to develop this paper revolves around why is it that we get resources from our governments, from our organizations, from donors to design and implement projects. But sometimes we end up with very limited transformation in the people that have been intended for that change to take place in their lives. Why is it like that? The second guiding question, or the central theme of my presentation, is the dislocation of results-based monitoring and evaluation in our projects, in our programs, right from the beginning of problems and needs assessment up to the outcomes and impacts. A missing link in that whole chain of our programs, of our efforts. So the dislocation is the central theme of my presentation. There were 4 guiding objectives that helped me to develop this presentation, as you can see on the board. But just to highlight a few, I'm going to zero in on an aspect of the theory of change, as it is linked to the need for all of us to be results-based compliant. There's also another theory that I'm going to deal with briefly, which is the resource scarce theory, or the paradox of plenty, in the sense that in Africa, we are endowed with natural resources, expertise, and all that. But why is it that despite all those resources, we are still limited in our magnitude and pace of development? So those are the 2 theories that I'm interacting with in this trajectory of monitoring and evaluation within the results-based context. So, results-based monitoring and evaluation, what is that? For us to answer that question, we have to go backwards a little bit, maybe one pace back, to look at results-based management, because that is where results-based monitoring and evaluation is derived. So briefly, why results-based management in the first place? The issue is, historically and traditionally, most of us, whether it is in government, public sector, private sector, or civil society, or any players in development, we have been focusing a lot on the resources, managing the resources, budgets. How compliant are we with the budgets? Reporting variance and explaining the variances in the budget, resources. We also have been very concerned about activities to make sure that whatever we plan to do, we make sure that we do those things well. If we have planned to do so many workshops in a year, and we follow them almost religiously to say, have we done it? And we have been doing these things with a high level of efficiency, including to look at, did we complete what we said we were going to do? Those are the outputs. So, completed activities, did we do them? If we say we're going to build 3 rural clinics in a particular district, did we build them? And then we say yes. So, in terms of doing that, we've been doing that very well. But what has dawned us recently is, despite the fact that we have been doing those things so well with a high level of efficiency, still problems remain. And this is where the aspect of results-based came in, to say, what is that we are not doing well? Yet we have in terms of management, we are doing so well in terms of resources, activities, and outputs. Whatever we plan to do, we finish. But still, there is no transformation in people's lives. So this has been a recent recognition, awakening, which is now the issue or the trajectory of results-based management, which means now we are going to go beyond, whatever we do, is we are going to go beyond resources, activities, and outputs to determining whether or not positive change has taken place in people's lives. That's the results-based approach in development. So it is against this background that results-based management I've just shared with you, I'm bringing in the results-based monitoring and evaluation, which also means that it's no longer a matter of monitoring whether we're within budget, whether we've done what we plan to do, or whether we have completed what we said we were going to complete. It is a monitoring for results, monitoring for positive change in people's lives. It is also going further to say we need to evaluate for change. So, within this context, there is now this theory of change, that results-based management is not for fun. It is aiming to change someone's life. Now, as you can see on the board there, the first thing is to understand what the problems or the needs are of the people. In fact, if there are no problems or needs, there's no need for anyone to design a project or program. Just like most of my colleagues here who are teachers or lecturers in universities. When a student develops a proposal, research proposal, if we cannot find a problem in the research proposal, we would always say, there's no need to do this thing. It's the same thing with our development programs. If we are not clear with the problems and the needs of the people, we are wasting resources. So that's the first thing. Then it is after we have understood the needs or the problems, which I'm going to explain later, what is the difference between problems and needs, that we will then say to ourselves, what change do we want to bring about if we go ahead to address these needs and problems? The question is, what change? And by asking that question, we are saying, what result? Before we even design and implement anything, after understanding the problems and needs, we then need to ask a fundamental question to say, what change are we able to bring about so that these problems and needs are resolved? So we have to clearly articulate the change or the transformation right from the beginning, rather than start by implementing things and hope that change will come about. That has been a problem, that we look at the problems and then we go on to implement, and then we try to make changes as we go along. I mean, we try to bring about transformation as we go along. We have to start by looking at the transformation. Hence, results-based. Hence, the issue of theory of change, that you are motivated to make a difference in people's lives. That's why you are doing what you are doing. So results-based means you have the change in mind right from the beginning. Now, where do we locate monitoring? Largely, monitoring is located between, in those areas, problems and needs, resources, and activities. That's and outputs. That's where we find monitoring for results largely located. And it is important that when you talk about monitoring for results, it means that you do have already developed indicators, because you cannot monitor any development initiative without clearly articulated or defined indicators. You monitor, which means you collect data on specific indicators, and these indicators should be both quantitative and qualitative. It's no longer a time where you will say, you know what, I'm a statistician, so that's all I'm good at. We don't implement programs based on your expertise, and then you you ambush development within your expertise alone. That will not help us to transform. Yes, you are a statistician, but look at the program. You also need some qualitative or the human nature approach to that development. So you need to look at who else is around who can help you to develop the qualitative indicators. The same thing can happen. You cannot just drive a program based on the fact that you are a qualitative expert and you ignore statistics as well. So we need to have both quantitative and qualitative indicators for us to have results-based monitoring to go on in an effective way. After we have done the monitoring of those 4 aspects, we ask a question to say, so what about what we have been doing? Yes, we've put in resources, money, human resources, material resources, and we've done activities, and we've completed things, which are the outputs. After completing those things, so what about the lives of the people? That is the question for results. Now, that's where we need to evaluate. So evaluate is now looking at whether or not an initiative has brought about positive change or transformation in people's lives. That is the center or the reason for existence for any action that we do. Have we changed people's lives? So in summary, that is the theory of change. If you do something which does not bring about positive change, it means you are defying theory of change. You are actually undermining the centrality of you as a change agent in the development initiatives in this world. In this theory of change, there are certain things that we have to understand. First, but not necessarily in that context, there's a need for us to understand the context in which the development initiative is taking place. Presenters since Monday have been talking about the power of the social dimension in development. Sometimes it is undervalued, the sociological dimensions, the cultural, the language. We need to be very clear about those things because they play a central role. Otherwise, we will not be able to bring about the change that we would have intended to bring. The other thing is to look at, just highlight the one about how your development initiative should be sequenced. In other words, you need to look at how the different components of your development initiatives are related. Which should come first, which should come second? Or should certain of those components have to be done concurrently? So the systematic and logical linkages of the components of the intervention are key for us to be able to bring about robust and effective transformation in people's lives. Let's go to the issue of the resource case theory. I grew up in rural areas. And obviously, my parents were not so fortunate to be resourceful. But first, I want to demonstrate that my parents were resource-based compliant. Because even though they did not have even a bank account, they had a very clear result to say, I want my child, Pindai, to be an educated child. That was a very clear result. And so she worked backwards to say, what can I do now to make sure that I consistently be able to pay school fees? So she would do some piecework at the neighbors' fields. She would sell some chickens. She would go to negotiate with the school head that this term things are very hard. Please, can you allow my child Pina to go to school? Results-based. Until I finished primary school, until I finished high school and went to university and so on. So that's results-based. But I'm trying to demonstrate that it is not because you have got limited resources that you are not able to transform people's lives. It is the limitation in you to be motivated by the change. Once you have the change clearly defined, you can work backwards and normally you can get resources because you are very clear with the results. In Africa, we have got everything that we need. We have got oil in Nigeria, in Angola. We have got minerals. Even where I'm standing, if I dig deep enough, I'll get some minerals where I'm standing right now. We've got lots of resources. But the issue is that sometimes people who are endowed with resources don't develop fast and effective enough. And this is what has characterized Africa. It's almost like the resources we have, instead of those resources to be a blessing to us, they've become a curse. And that's an unfortunate situation. Why am I bringing this in? I'm trying to bring it on the dimension that when we get resources for our development initiatives, let's make sure that we use the resources effectively to transform people's lives. Otherwise, we'll confirm a resource case theory, whereby we get so much resources, but we are not transforming people's lives. The high fives are very fundamental. And we need to make sure whenever we get those resources, we'll be able to transform the people's lives in each one of those high fives. Now, what are some of the pitfalls in the way we design, implement, and conclude our programs? I'm going to share with you one personal example. And sorry to share with you about this one. It's my health situation from 2007 to 2011. I had a terrible health problem. And I'm using this personal testimony to demonstrate that sometimes we mix up symptoms and needs in our conceptualization of developing initiatives. So what happened to me? From 2007, I developed problems with consistent headaches, low blood pressure, diminishing vision, general fatigue, and so on. And what did I do? I consulted the optician so that he would look at my eyes and see what was the problem with my eyes. In fact, this situation worsened over time to the extent that I was now advised not to drive. So I would get spectacles from the opticians, but they did not do a thing. They did not solve my problem. Some friends, like some of you, you would advise me on the issue of headache to drink plenty of water, and I did. But the headache did not go away. I went to the pharmacist, get some tablets to manage my low blood pressure. But my low blood pressure did not go away for 5 years, from 2007 to 2011. What is the issue here? The issue is a mixing up of symptoms and needs, which sometimes lead us to make our programs not to achieve what they are supposed to achieve, which is transforming people's lives. In this personal example that I've just given you, and in the paper is more elaborate, the symptoms are those. Those are the symptoms. But what happened? On 23 November 2011, one of my colleagues, we just happened to work on a project together. And I was late for a meeting. And this colleague, Dr. Nando, said, you said you went to a general practitioner. What's going on? What's wrong? Then I told him about this story. Because on that day, my eyes were actually itching. So I was given some eye drops just to address the itching. Once again, that's a symptom. And so he said, no, I think the way this health condition of yours is being managed is wrong. Go and see this particular doctor, who is an eye specialist. So I went to see that specialist. It is after seeing that specialist that he diagnosed that I had a growth in my head. And this growth in my head was causing those symptoms, headaches, because it was a foreign object. It was also suppressing the chemical balance of my body, leading to the low blood pressure. It was sitting on the optic nerves, causing me to lose vision. So you can see all that was the problem. But finally, I went for a surgery, and the growth was taken out of my head. And after this presentation, if you look at me, you will see this line here, a scar. So that was removed. So you would see that is one of the pitfalls. Pitfall number 2 is not to clearly specify the change that you want. I'm just giving you examples here. You can't say that this will go a long way. What is a long way? And so on and so on. You have to be very specific. Like the second column is trying to make things so specific. The third mix-up is the missing link in results-based monitoring and evaluation is the absence of horizontal or integrative thinking. We have heard this morning that there's power in multi-sectorial approach in development. That's exactly what we're talking about here, what I'm talking about here. The horizontal thinking is very important. Just take an example of building a clinic in a community. You need Minister of Health, you need Minister of Construction, Minister of Environment. You can't do it alone as Minister of Health. But in any initiative, there is a lead minister or a lead department. So we need to have integrative thinking as we go along. The pitfall number 4 is input-based, whereby we start by saying, let's have resources before you even think about the change that you want to bring about. And that has limited development. The last part of my presentation is the case study. There's a project in Nigeria, Onisio village in Koji, which was implemented in 2005. It's a solar electrification project. Why I'm presenting this is because the intentions were very good, as you can see on the board. But it was supposed to run for 5 months, but it ran only for 5 years, sorry. It was supposed to run for 5 years, but it only ran for 3 months. What was the problem? The lesson number 1, the issue of communication. There is, in that community, the community was not involved, was not consulted to be able to articulate their needs. So what you find at the end is that part of the project focus was actually addressing symptoms rather than the needs. So that was the challenge. Another challenge was actually lack of competence. The people that were sampled to deliver in this project were not competent to actually implement a solar electrification project of this nature. And so you would find that we won't achieve results if we do that. The other thing is about the quality of the material that was used. They used inferior components for the project. So that did not help to bring about results. The overall deficiency or the overall problem in this project is that there was no monitoring and evaluation framework to help to monitor for results, to help to evaluate for results. These pitfalls could have been picked up if there were monitoring and evaluation framework with specific indicators right from the beginning. I would then want to conclude by saying that what I'm trying to argue here is that when we are results-based monitoring and evaluation wired, we increase the chance to respond effectively to the needs of the people and thereby transforming their lives. So my overall conclusion, recommendation is that we need to think results-based monitoring and evaluation in every project that we do. In doing that, every person who is involved in any project for development should actually have a certain level of appreciation, knowledge, and skills in results-based, not just people in programs or in admin, even the leadership. We need to have results-based leaders so that we can transform Africa. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sithole, for this great presentation. And Dr. Sithole, as you have heard already, and also from this morning, he took us through his thinking about result-based M&E. In the first instance, he tried to give us why he undertook this study. And basically, he put it within the context of M&E for transformation. And within that, he talked about the need for a theory of change and also to think about the resource cost theory. And he brought out a number of pitfalls for us to take into consideration when we are dealing with a result-based M&E. And then he concluded by saying that M&E matters in this sort of, in any development intervention. And he also raised, for me, one important thing he tries to bring out is to be able well, from his own perspective, he tried to distinguish M&E from evaluation in terms of the location and the result chain. But it depends whether you agree with him, because basically he said along the lines that M&E deals with more in terms of the demand side or the supply side up to the delivery, and evaluation takes up from there. But as we all know, the two are linked. So now we open the floor for observations, comments, and any contribution.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sitoli. My name is Amali Abraham Amali from Nigeria. I'd like to buy into your thoughts of the cost theory, particularly stating that necessity is the mother of invention. As a young chap in the high school, I used to hear a popular quote, "No Nile, no Egypt," which means Egypt as a country, as at then, there was no livelihood without the River Nile. So the presence of River Nile in Egypt actually created a platform, because that was their main sustenance of agriculture. Now, I'm going to the point that Africa's, let me say, slow rate of development is as a result of, well, I say abundance of our resources, and has actually made us to lag behind. There are years in which, in some parts of the African continent, you may not need to farm, but you can eat. But you can't do that in Europe and some other parts of the world, whereby they have virtually, well, I say drought, seasons of droughts, and they have to go down deep to look for water before they can go into anything about cultivation or the likes of it. Now, seeing that we have, I won't call it a challenge, that we have abundant resources, and I also like to say that those abundant resources have actually cost us much, because we've not been able to, we've not been posed with challenges enough to make a living. Take Libya, for example. There was a time when Libya was willing to go as far as transporting water through the sea from Europe into their country before the Great Man-Made River came into existence. I think that's one of the, they call it the eighth wonder of the world, and it's a remarkable project. But the water scarcity in Libya actually caused them to think far, and they are where they are today in terms of water. So posing a little question, sir, is our abundant resources actually a blessing or a curse? And if it is based on the cost theory, seeing that we have so much abundant resources, how can we effectively use or harness these resources to aid development? Because we have more than the developing countries have, but we've not been able to effectively utilize this. Thank you very much, sir.
My name is Fred Soderbaum. I'm from Sweden, University of Gothenburg, and I'm following the discussions around aid in Europe, and here there is a huge and vivid discussion about results-based management, and I was a bit surprised that you paid so little attention to the costs and negative effects of results-based management. The discussions I've been involved in pay a lot of tribute to these costs, and that RBM, in fact, reinforces the focus on activities and outputs, that this so-called results focus does not manage to go beyond the outputs and therefore does not manage to cause transformation. And these critics say that it's inherent in this results-based management approach. So I mean, I'm sure that you are so familiar with all these discussions. So why couldn't you guide us a little bit more about this?
Thank you very much. My name is Mohammed Manai. I'm a consultant. And thank you very much, Doctor, on this presentation. My issue is in the same vein, and dwelling on the outputs as if there is a direct linkage between, resources, activities to outputs, without taking into account the risks and without taking measures to have, a fail-safe management of projects. Have we understood what are the pitfalls of the implementation course during the project so that we can avoid any mistakes, and without empowering the implementers and also beneficiaries? So all around, your description of results-based management, RBM and E, is insufficient to provide a right solution to enhance the effectiveness, the implementation effectiveness. So we need to probably, my question to you is, what, in your presentation, did you assess all these risks behind the implementation once you have made the right diagnosis? You have really, the assurance that the need or the problem will be solved by reaching the outputs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I like the presentation, but I may say that it is like result-based management has become like erosion. So we have to believe in it. Suppose that I am not a believer. Therefore, I would ask you to tell me the limitations of this framework. I remember that yesterday one of the presenters mentioned so many shocks happening around and in interventions. So how this framework can be a solution in a context where there are so many shocks. Well, I have to present myself. My name is Albert Nyasigakusi, and I work for IDEV. Thank you.
Let's give the opportunity to Dr. Sitoli to respond to give his view to the 4 questions that have so far been raised. We'll take another round. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the contributions and the questions. First, I don't want anyone to go away and thinking that, or they have an impression that monitoring and evaluation are separate concepts in practice. Monitoring and evaluation, they are interrelated. While monitoring is an ongoing tracking of your activities, at some point you have to make judgments of what the activities are contributing to people's lives. So the two are integrated. But I was pointing the fact that if you put them on a continuum, from needs to outputs, you have got more of monitoring there And then beyond outputs, that's where we're going to make judgment of whether or not positive change has taken place, and that is evaluation. Because the word evaluation comes from the word value. What value are we adding to people's lives through what we have been doing? The first question about the resources that are abundant in Africa, what can we do so that the resources do not continue to be a curse, to transform curse into blessings? The issue is really multifaceted, but let me attempt by saying we need to move away. You know, the first country to be independent in Africa is Ghana, 1957. So since 1957, we have not improved in transforming raw materials, in processing raw materials. We keep exporting raw materials. So we need to move with the speed on industrialization, which is also one of the high fives. So if we do that, we can actually add more value to our resources, and these resources will become a blessing to us. And we also need to have good leaders, results-based leaders at all levels of our society. The other comment that came through was, did I consider the cost of results-based management and the issue of coming from resources up to outputs is costly? Yes, if nothing is expensive or if nothing is painful, sometimes it's not worth doing. The results-based management should not be taken as a program. It should be taken as a way of life. So of course it's going to be costly, but we need to make sure that we have understood right from the beginning why we need the resources that we need, so that we don't waste them. They can be used somewhere else. So sometimes we should not use the resources just because we got them, and we create a project or program where there's no need. We end up wasting resources. So indeed it is costly, and so when you are introducing RBM, you need to do change management as a process. You need to train people at all levels so that not only one component of the organization is literate in RBM, should be everyone. And then at the beginning it will be costly, but in the long run it will be less costly. And then risk management that has been asked, yes, in any project you need to do risk assessment. And that starts with you consulting the people that you intend to transform, to understand the issues around, to understand their sociology, their psychology, and everything around the context which I talked about earlier on. So it is critical, it's powerful, that comment that we need to do risk assessment. And the limitation of RBM, of course, yes, there are some limitations in the sense that when you are introducing RBM in an organization or in a country, basically there are no net limitations to it, but it will take time for people to get used to it. So the limitation is really the change management. That's what I can talk about. Once you have gone through the change management, then the rest will be fine. Thanks.
Maybe Dr. Sitoli, one thing you could also do is link to the question that has been raised about the value of RBM. It's good to link it to what RBM gives relative to its cost. I think that is a thing. In effect, it seems as if in some places, in some circumstances, it can lead to a negative value instead of producing a positive value, in the sense that you invest so much, but what you are getting, suppose, as he said, in some areas, it tends to focus much more on activities rather than what we had anticipated.
Actually, I was very disappointed if people apply RBM and just focus on activities. That won't be it. RBM goes all the way to impact, the whole results ladder, from needs to impact. So the reason why you have to do activities, you should have done an assessment to see that, do we need these activities to make that change? Because some activities we may not need them. So it should be prudent of the designers of the projects and programs to look at, do we actually need those activities? to be able to bring about change in people's lives. So RIBM goes all the way. It's the whole results ladder from needs to impact.
Thank you. So we take another rounds of questions. We've dealt with, no, sorry. There are two ladies there because I think we need to take into consideration the gender factor. Yes, you start with.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that great presentation. My question is about the theory of change. I would love to be enlightened about how this approach takes care of the unpredictable changes that are likely to happen along the program implementation. How best does it take care of such changes? Because I assume there are also quite a number of assumptions that are being made as the theories of change are being drawn. But then along the way, as the program is being implemented, there are some changes that arise and you realize they were not taken care of. So how do you, again, go back to the same story and try to fit in these changes? Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Alejandra Palma from the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development. I had a comment on result-based monitoring, and I think one of the issues is that monitoring is usually not rewarded in operation teams or banking teams. You know, you're rewarded for approving projects, you're rewarded for closing deals, but in your scorecard, in your performance appraisal, monitoring doesn't get into account in a lot of instances. So I think a system of incentives should be in place if we're trying to introduce or make results-based monitoring and evaluation work. And I was wondering if you had some ideas on how this could be encouraged. Thank you.
Ok, bon, je m'appelle Omar Koulibaly, directeur d'Afrique de l'Ouest d'une ONG norvégienne, Always Believe. Je voudrais remercier le docteur pour son intervention, mais je souhaiterais que je voudrais remercier le docteur pour sa brillante intervention et je souhaiterais que ce genre d'informations soient portées au plus haut niveau. Parce qu'on se rend compte aujourd'hui que dans nos États africains, on voit le suivi-évaluation comme un contrôle. Donc les États sont beaucoup réticents vis-à-vis de cet instrument-là. C'est ce qui pose beaucoup de problèmes dans nos États africains. Et c'est un véritable frein. Je souhaiterais donc que le docteur nous enseigne, nous donne des orientations. Comment est-ce qu'au plus haut niveau, on puisse adopter ce genre de pratiques-là? Parce que ça pose beaucoup de problèmes. Nous, je me rappelle, on a eu à exécuter un projet dans un village, dans le cadre évidemment de l'environnement, l'assainissement de l'environnement. On nous a apporté qu'il était important de faire des latrines pour les toilettes. Et nous nous sommes rendus compte qu'après avoir construit ces toilettes, les villageois même ne partaient pas dans ces toilettes-là. Parce que la donne culturelle n'a pas été prise en compte. Parce qu'ils disent qu'ils ne peuvent pas aller déféquer sur les déchets de leurs enfants, que ça ne se fait pas. Donc voyez-vous qu'il y a beaucoup de gâchis que nous faisons au niveau de nos États et que ça nous ramène souvent à faire les mêmes projets sur les mêmes personnes et on n'avance pas. Donc vraiment, c'est un plaidoyer. Il faudrait que nos États prennent ça au plus haut niveau. Merci.
Je me présente, je suis M. Zouré Toba. Je voudrais dire d'abord un grand merci à Dr Sitole, dont j'ai fait la connaissance à ce séminaire. Et je suis plus que satisfait de sa communication, car j'avais une préoccupation vis-à-vis de l'interdisciplinarité. Et depuis hier, j'insiste sur ce fait. L'interdisciplinarité dans la conduite de l'évaluation. Ici, dans son propos, il a dit une chose que j'ai retenue. Il a dit, quand on est focalisé sur les résultats plutôt que sur les règles de conduite, sur les savoir-faire, on est en plein dans la théorie du changement. Qu'est-ce qu'il voulait dire? Il voulait dire qu'il ne s'agit pas de se focaliser sur sa discipline dans la conduite de l'évaluation. Parce que souvent, nous avons l'impression que l'aspect sociologique n'est qu'un prétexte. Aujourd'hui, la remarque qui est faite, c'est que souvent les populations ne se sentent pas concernées par les projets. C'est ça la vraie question de l'évaluation. Qu'est-ce qu'on évalue? Qui évalue-t-on? Est-ce les populations? Est-ce les projets? Parce que souvent, je pense qu'on fait des amalgames. Est-ce qu'on évalue les projets? Est-ce qu'on évalue l'impact des projets sur les populations? Je crois qu'on doit dissocier ces deux choses. Et je voulais terminer en disant que la dimension sociologique ne doit pas être un prétexte dans la conduite de l'évaluation. Et je voudrais que le docteur soit un peu plus explicite pour que les gens comprennent. Parce que j'ai l'impression qu'on ne comprend pas bien sa préoccupation. Voilà. Merci.
Oh, pardon.
Bien. Merci. Donc, je joins ma voix à celle des autres, ceux qui m'ont précédé, pour remercier le docteur Soutolé d'avoir tenté de faire une autre approche par rapport à la question de la gestion axée sur les résultats. Et vraiment, c'est une bonne chose qu'il y ait des démarches de ce genre. Cependant, je voudrais noter que peut-être il y a un certain nombre d'éléments sur lesquels où il ne s'est pas attardé et même qu'il est revenu là-dessus. Par exemple, par rapport à la question du changement. Le changement en lui-même ne veut pas dire que ce soit positif. Et si vous vous rappelez, le premier événement qu'on a eu ici, Madame Zenda, Ophir, avait dit que, justement parlant de l'évaluation, que le changement, justement l'évaluation peut aboutir à des aspects, ressortir des aspects positifs ou des aspects négatifs. Et je lis cela à la question du résultat. Le résultat, il peut être positif ou négatif. Et peut-être ce qui a manqué dans votre projet ici, vous n'avez pas dit c'est quoi les résultats. Les résultats sont différents. Vous êtes revenu là-dessus en parlant de l'impact, mais vous avez sauté une autre étape, c'est que vous avez les activités, le produit, l'effet et l'impact. L'impact, il est difficile à mesurer, on y contribue. Par contre, les produits et les effets qui font, plusieurs produits font des effets, peut-être qu'il aurait fallu un peu parler de cela pour nous donner des éléments par rapport à cela. Et c'est très important, parce que la plupart de ce que nous sommes en train de dire là, c'est lié au fait qu'il y a une certaine confusion qui est venue. Je termine en disant que, ici, au sein de la Banque africaine de développement, il y a une initiative africaine pour la gestion axée sur les résultats. Et il y a toute une démarche qui dit que la gestion axée sur les résultats a comme, entre autres piliers, la planification, la budgétisation et le suivi-évaluation, la qualité, la délivrance des services publics, ce que la banque a ajouté d'elle-même. Donc, il faudrait qu'on tienne compte, ou en tout cas qu'au niveau de la banque, on ait cette information, parce qu'il y a 17 pays africains qui sont en train de suivre cette démarche-là pour voir qu'est-ce que ça va donner au niveau de nos gouvernements. Donc, je voulais donner cette information et puis pour que nous puissions faire les liaisons et que nous puissions mutualiser les efforts. Merci.
Bon, merci. Hein, parce que short and not too long so that we don't take a lot.
My name is Chris Akem. I work with IITA in Nigeria. Mine is a very short one. The presentation was quite good. My concern is this theory of change, moving from results-based management or moving towards results-based management somehow contradicts the push from some of the donors who want a scorecard, which is basically based on activities. They would like to monitor and see exactly what is going on step by step, rather than waiting for that change that will happen at the end. How do we reconcile the two when we need to satisfy these donors to make sure the money is coming, rather than to wait for the long-term goal of seeing that change? They want the scorecard, and that's what some of them are pushing for. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chris, sorry. Dr. Sitoli will now give you the opportunity to respond. Please be concise, and since we don't have a lot of time. Yeah, thank you.
So let me start with the last comment. The balanced scorecard technique, which is focusing on activities, is not really a contradiction to results-based management. Remember that activities and outputs are the means to achieve that change. So we need to bring in whatever techniques that we can have to increase our effectiveness and efficiency in the implementation towards the results. So I would not take that as a contradiction, but it's part and parcel of efforts to achieve positive change. Then there was a comment about change is not only positive. It can be negative, it can be positive. Indeed. But my argument was that to start with, why are we doing what we are going to do? Why are we committing resources to that initiative? Our wiring or our psychology is to bring about positive change. But we know that not everything that we do can bring positive change. Sometimes you can come across unintended negative results. So this is the argument that we then need to have robust evaluation framework to be able to pick those things on time so that we don't increase negative results but increase positive results and minimize negative results. So that's where the results-based monitoring and evaluation comes in. So you're quite right there, but I'm just adding where this RBM comes in. Then the fear of monitoring and evaluation, a comment came through. Yes, all we need to do is really to make sure that monitoring and evaluation is nurtured and sustained in our organizations. It should not be a resident in the M&E office, but should be everyone in that organization so that we can actually get rid of this fear. It is actually to our advantage if everyone is literate in monitoring and evaluation to actually add value to what we do. Then there was theory of change question from the side that there's a risk that you may not be able to actually make changes as you go along in the project or program implementation. Indeed. So how do you then assure yourself or be certain that you are still within the theory of change framework or framework? There is a risk of you drifting away from actually making a change. So therefore, in the first place, this is my argument that you need to come up with a robust monitoring and evaluation framework which will help you to collect data, and when you analyze that data, the data will show you that you are now away from making a change or you are still within the dimension of making a change. So monitoring and evaluation indicators are critical as a way of risk management for you not to miss the point of transforming people's lives in your project or program.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sitoli. It's great. He's just taken us through by presenting a case for RBM. And as we all know, RBM is an investment. And for that investment, it's got to produce some value. And I recall that one of the comments from the the floor is that it's very important for the environment to be understood, that the context of where the RBM is to be implemented needs to be understood. That includes also the needs of the beneficiaries. And I'll just take this opportunity to thank Dr. Sitoli, and I'll call upon you to help me thank you as well. No, I think. No, I think it's okay. We fine. We continue. Okay. So, any one of you who would like to be in touch with Dr. Sitoli, we've got his email address. We'll pass it on to you, and he's also here. I think it's very good to keep in touch with him, and especially to continue the talk on RBM, because it's very important, as he's just said. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy your meal. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Sitole. At this point, I would like to invite you all for lunch. Lunch will be downstairs at -2, please. And we would like to be back here at exactly 2:30. As we did yesterday, there'll be a lunch talk again today. So please, if we could go quickly, get our food so that we can settle down and then have lunch. Thank you very much.